you talk about, trying to understand evil. I mean, these things where I don't even get into the details. People could Google it, and it's just like it makes no sense. You try to. Whenever I'm going to get a little bit graphic here, whenever I hear these stories of like some CNN producer getting arrested for having imagery of children, I always hope, I read the article just to get the details. I hope it's like they're watching teenage girls and there's some kind of conversation we could have about how high schoolers are overly sexualized. Then you read it and it's like infants and children being tied to chairs and there's message boards.
Yeah.
So it's not just one guy, like he's got a community.
Yeah.
And you see this and you're like, what? You're a shrink, I'm not. What is the utility to you? Is it just pure? If you feel.
You really want an answer to that question?
I do, because you were talking about understanding evil. It's like, I can understand evil in the sense of sadism, but a child is weak. Like, what if you won here? It's like beating the crap out of it's like taking candy from a baby is not an accomplishment.
No, it's oh boy. You really want to answer?
Yes, I want an answer because I'm not the only one. Okay. When I talk about this on social media, people are like, I can't wrap my head around it.
All right.
I can understand assault. I can understand murder. I can understand bank robberies.
Yeah.
But you read stories like this, I'm like, this is an alien thought process.
Okay. So in the story of Cain and Abel, I'm bringing it up because it's the first biblical story about real people.
Right. Okay.
Right. And it's a murderer and his target.
Yeah.
So that's not fun. That's the first thing that happens in the profane world. Right. Okay, so Cain, he's working away, hypothetically, and he's not getting anywhere. Okay, and there's two reasons for that, possibly. One is that he's doing something wrong, and the other is the cosmos is constituted improperly.
Sure.
And he decides that the cosmos is constituted improperly. So he's doing what he can, and everyone should know it, and he's working himself to death, and it ain't working. And so something's broken. Whereas his brother, like the sun shines wherever he goes, everyone loves him. So it's Cain's failing, trying hard, failing, making sacrifices, failing. Abel, no effort at all, it's just sailing through life. That's Cain's position. So Cain decides he's going to go and have it out with God because it's not his fault, obviously.
Right.
And so he says to God that Abel, everything's going well for him. And here I am suffering away, nothing's working for me. And I'm bitter and miserable and resentful, and no wonder. And God says, well, you got a couple of things wrong with your theory there, buddy. The first theory is that's wrong is that your failure is not what's making you miserable. And God says, there's an intermediary figure playing a role here that you don't understand. He says, sin crouches at your door like a sexually aroused predatory animal, and you invited it in to have its way with you. So you engaged in a creative dialogue with the figure of evil because you felt you were justified, because you're resentful, because you're failing. Now, while you were failing, you could have learned.
Sure.
You could have decided it was your problem, but no, it's God's fault. And so God tells Cain, I don't think it's my fault. I think it's your fault. If you did well, you would be accepted.
Yeah.
All right. So Cain listens, but he doesn't hear. And he goes away, and then he invites his brother to go do something with him, like in good faith, and then he kills him with the rock. Why? To get revenge against God. That's the motive. Right, because Cain is existentially wounded because his sacrifices are being rejected. So he takes God's ideal and he sullies it.
Right.
That's what they're doing with kids. You take the most innocent possible creature and you do the worst possible thing to them. Yeah, that's what it is.
Oh God! So
God is right.
I was thinking about it in terms of a pornographic aspect, but it's actually just literally demonic.
It's like core demonic.
Yeah.
Well, that's why
that's why it's so alien.
Christ says in the Gospels that that the people who sully children, he says something like it would be better for them if they if a heavy weight was wrapped around their neck and they were thrown into the ocean. It's the worst sin. That's why they're doing it. That's why they're doing it. It's the ultimate middle finger to reality and being. It's like, you fucked with me, I'm gonna fuck with you. Right? And so, and then there's that perverse delight there's a novelty edge to that too. So you get sexual gratification for a multitude of reasons. One reason is just sort of reflexive, like sexual activity in itself is pleasurable, but you can put a novelty spin on that. And that's partly what motivates diverse creatures to seek out multiple sexual partners. And you can game that in all sorts of ways. When people start watching pornography, they start with the sorts of things that you described, like attractive women attractive nude pictures of, of lithe women. But then after 10,000 of those, it's like, well, maybe a little variation. And then you can chase, that's that inviting that spirit in. You can chase that edge, right? Serial killers do that. They chase that edge right to the logical conclusion. The logical conclusion is a long, long, long way down. And people don't want to understand this. It's worse even than this, Michael. It's worse than this because, see, one of the things God tells Cain is that he invited this spirit in to have its way with him. It's very specific wording. There's like there's a whole sequence of mythological stories around it. For someone to do something like shoot up an elementary school, they've fantasized about it for like 5,000 hours. Like there's a devil in them, so to speak. You might as well call it that because for all intents and purposes, that's what it is. They've invited it in and it's taken possession of them. And it's fantasizing in that spirit. What's the worst thing I could do?
But that's not the word. That to me, it's a lot easier to wrap my head around. I hate everyone in the school. I'm going to put them in their place. I'm going to show them what's what.
Yeah, but this is an adult killing children. I was specifically referring to Sandy Hook in that case. Yeah. I would say in terms of level of sin, I'm annoyed at my classmates.
Right, yeah.
That's more comprehensible.
Easily,
yeah, definitely. Although, there's a darkness in that. Well, we don't even have to say that. That's extraordinarily deep. No, the desolation of the innocent. That's the thrill in and of itself. Like and then there's more to it. It's like, because this is why it's Luciferian. So Lucifer is the usurper, technically speaking, right? So he's often the intellect, by the way, that wants to put itself in the highest place. Well, there's nothing more that makes you the commanding officer of the cosmos than to take the most profound moral rule imaginable and to invert it, right? That's how much you can get away with. And I know what people like this are like. They also think, I'm so smart, no one will ever catch me. And I can toy with people too because I can hint at this because they're so stupid they won't even notice. That's often why they get caught. That's what happens to Raskolnikov in Crime and Punishment.